Carol.
We're ready.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Paso Robles Planning Commission of March 22nd, 2022. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, staff, will you please take a head count of who's here?
Commissioner Christensen. Present. Commissioner Covarrubias.
Here.
Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Gibson.
Here.
Commissioner Jorgensen. Commissioner Neal.
Here.
Commissioner Kogler.
Here.
The record will reflect Jorgensen and Davis are absent. They both contacted us before the meeting.
Very good, thank you. Item D on our agenda is staff introductions. Mr. Frace, would you handle that, please?
Warren Frace, Community Development Director.
Marcy Reynoso, Administrative Assistant. Ashley Peterson as well.
David Affey, City Engineer.
Okay, thank you. Item E on our agenda is general public comments regarding matters not on the agenda this evening. Are there any comments either from the audience or from those virtually attending the meeting for items not on the agenda tonight? Nothing virtual either? Very
no,
good.
no
okay,
callers.
Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Item F is agenda items proposed to be tabled or rescheduled. Do we have any of those?
There are none.
Okay, thank you. That'll move us into the public hearing segment of our agenda, and we have 3 this evening. The first is a public hearing time extension 22-02 for tentative track map 3149, TEX 22-02, TR3 3149. It's PD 19-10, P19-124. The applicant is Travis Fuentes and Paul Shannon. Location of the project is 500 Lenny Road. It's APN 009-315-014. Could we have a staff report, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this is a request for a time extension for this subdivision, as you had mentioned. This is located at the corner at Lene and the corner of Lene, and it's actually Airport Road and Lene Road. This triangular piece, it's part of the Olson South Chandler specific plan. So this is a request for a 2-year time extension. It's just under 10-acre parcel with a subdivision that would create 123 residential lots. 7 of those lots are common areas, different detention basins, different amenity lots. And this is part of the Olson South Chandler specific plan, as I mentioned. This project is a small lot, single family, with an alley loaded type product for this neighborhood. So this is a copy of the tentative map showing the lot layout, showing the Airport Road on which would be the western boundary, and then the alignment of Lene Road going diagonal from east to west. And this is the development plan that would go along with the subdivision. So this subdivision was approved with the specific plan in February 2020. Was up for extension for 2 years on the February 2022. The applicant provided a request for a subdivision, or I'm sorry, a request for a time extension, which is why we're here tonight. So before the commission tonight is a request for a 2-year time extension to extend these entitlements. I know that the applicants are have the property listed for sale, or are working to get a developer to come by and build the property. As you know, the Olson South Chandler specific plan is getting very close to grading. A lot of the infrastructure, roads infrastructure that would provide for this property is being worked with the larger specific plan area that is going to start development soon. But this particular triangle was a different property owner than the larger Olson South Chandler specific plan. So that's why this is a separate tentative map from one of the ones that were approved with the Olson South Chandler plan. So this project is being reviewed tonight for a time extension where the Planning Commission has the ability to approve it or suggest a shorter time or reject the request for the extension. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Darren. I would also maybe ask if the applicant has anything they would like to say at this point, and then we'll move into questions. Is there an applicant representative?
And I believe that he's on, I believe Paul Shannon is online.
Okay.
And we can bring him on during public comment or bring him on anytime. Oh, okay.
Hi, my name is Corbin Holland. Paul Shannon's my partner. I'm a part owner in this project, and we do, as Darren mentioned, we're discussing with the buyer that plans to move forward. Part of COVID and inflation and costs, everybody's having to redo their projections, and so we're formally in escrow, working out, still negotiating price. We think it's a great project. It's one of the only single-family detached, low-entry homes that will be coming on the market fairly soon. It's not too big, so it allows somebody to get started on it soon. And we would like the 2 years. It's been kind of a crazy last couple of years with this project, with COVID and everything else.
Thank you. This is fairly straightforward, so I think I would just go to the commission randomly and ask if anybody has any questions for staff or the applicant at this point in time. Seeing none, we will open the public hearing. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody either present in the room or virtually connected who would like to comment on this item?
Paul Shannon, he's on the line, so I can put him through. I know this gentleman spoke for him, but he's on as a caller, so I can put him through to see if...
You can, or we can have him in reserve for questions if need be. I think we've been well represented here.
Okay, I'll go ahead and bring him in.
Okay.
Mr. Shannon, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Hi. Do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, I mean, I think Corbin kind of represented it, just asking for our time extension. We are in discussions with a developer to take this project down, and they'd like to get started quickly. But as he mentioned, underwriting has changed dramatically with price increases, inflation, and COVID. And so we're working hard on it and want to get the project into the city and built. And so we're doing everything we can, but do formally request a little more time to get it figured out. So appreciate your guys' time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comments? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring this back to the Planning Commission. Again, in random form, does anybody either have any discussion points and or a motion they'd like to make?
I'd like to make a motion.
Mr. Neal.
I'd like to move to approve draft resolution A with amendment to include PD 19-10, approving the request for a 2-year time extension for PD 19-10 and vesting tentative tract map 3149 to February 20th, 2024.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Covarrubias. I'll second.
Mr. Covarrubias seconds. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion by the commission? Hearing none, I'll ask staff to please call the question.
Commissioner Neal.
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias.
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson.
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen.
Aye.
Chairperson Kogler.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Yeah, thank you. Good luck. Tough times, but we appreciate your persistence. Our second public hearing tonight is for site plan review, SPR 21-15. It's P21-0098. The applicant is Luis Velacrez. The location is 716 Walnut Drive, PPN 009441051. May we have a staff report, please?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. Darcy Delgado, Associate Planner. So this is a site plan review request to construct 3 residential units, which includes one of the units being an accessory dwelling unit. So the subject site, as mentioned, is at 716 Walnut Drive. This is east of the 101 freeway, access just off of Creston Road. The site is a vacant, undeveloped parcel. It's just under half an acre, and it has an R2 zoning designation, which supports multifamily uses. Some nearby uses include the Wayside Liquor Store, there's an automotive shop, and then we have the county health offices across the street. So as part of the project request, the owner proposes to construct 3 residential units, and as I said, one of these is an accessory dwelling unit, with the other 2 being a single family, and then a multifamily unit being attached to that ADU. Concurrent with the site plan review request is also a request for a reduced front yard setback on Walnut Drive, which would reduce the setback from 15 feet to 10 feet. And so there are some municipal code findings that the Planning Commission can make to approve that reduced front yard setback. And so those findings are that the reduction is necessary to preserve oak trees and or minimize grading, that the project still maintains a 20-foot front yard setback for street-facing garage doors, and that the reduction would not be inconsistent with an established neighborhood pattern. So here we have the site plan, which reflects 2 separate structures that are accessed via the shared driveway from Walnut Drive. So one structure is the detached single-family residence, and that's located near the easterly lot line. And then the other structure is an attached 1-bedroom apartment unit and a 1-bedroom ADU. And this is sitting over a multi-car garage and carport, and the general location is near the western property line and closest to Walnut Drive. So this request would typically be reviewed by the Development Review Committee and not require approval by the Planning Commission. However, due to the request for the setback reduction, the Planning Commission is able to consider this project as a whole. So these elevations are for the attached multifamily unit and the ADU over that multi-car garage. And so during the DRC review process, the applicant did update the plans to show this structure, which sits closest to Walnut Drive, as having a gabled roof. So you'll note that there is some notations on the screen as well as in the staff report. In terms of colors, the applicant is going with a neutral color palette of tans and beiges with some accent brown. For materials, the roof is composition shingle. Siding will be a mix of, or it'll be stucco with a couple different colors used. There's accent brown wooden eaves, and then a textured concrete foundation. And then the second floor of the structure cantilevers out over the garage. And so there's also some corbel details which have been added where it cantilevers. So the single-family residence uses substantially the same colors. It will also be stucco with the composition shingle roof. The applicant has indicated the structure will most likely maintain the hip roof, and that would be intentional to be different than the gabled roof for the front structure. So this is the floor plan for the multifamily and ADU structure. So both the multifamily unit and the ADU are 1 bedroom. They're 600 square feet each. They're accessed by an interior stairwell, and it sits over that multi-car garage and carport. Each unit also has a 350 cubic foot storage area, which on the plan is right here, and that's in that carport. Or access from the carport. There's also a trash area for bins, and then a washer and dryer, and so that's right here. As part of this structure, you can see that the plan also calls for 3 additional garages, which goes beyond the minimum parking requirements for the site. So there is no zoning requirement or zoning code requirement that precludes development of extra garage space for a multifamily residential use, so long as the parking is residential and not commercial. And so according to the plans presented, the additional garages are for residential use only. So this is the floor plan for the single family structure. The residence is a total of 2,670 square feet in size. And then just to make a note on this plan that they do show their open space requirements. So they have a private deck and then a private DG yard shown. And this is the open space plan for the multifamily ADU structure, which shows a 400 square foot common open space. So the information provided for the project indicates that the open space is satisfied with a single area, And since the ADU is not required to provide open space, the plan does meet the minimum requirements for open space for the multifamily unit, although it appears that it would be shared by both. Here's the landscape plan, which was presented to the DRC. At this meeting, there was a little bit of concern over the landscaping in the front setback and how it would help to screen the building foundation wall for the two-story structure. So it was clarified at the DRC that the project would include a minimum of 3 to 4 foot tall shrubs in the front setback, and that would help to provide the screening as you see from Walnut Drive. So the plan shows the use of the acacia redolens, which is the bottom graphic, and then also the mint julep as the accent shrubs. So the acacia, over time it grows, according to what I found, it spreads to about 10 to 15 feet wide, and then the mint julep grows to about 4 to 5 feet tall. So it does seem that once established that this mix would help to meet that goal of providing screening for that building. And then regarding the front yard setback, as I mentioned earlier, the Planning Commission can make findings to approve a reduction. So typically 15 feet would be required, and they're asking for 10 feet. So just wanted to lay out the findings that the Planning Commission would need to make. So the first finding is related to the grading. In this case, the site has an average overall slope of 15%, and the applicant has indicated that the reduced setback helps to the design of the project to meet the minimum, well, I guess the maximum slope of 15% for the driveway. So that is their reason for requesting that setback reduction. And then secondly, the project is able to maintain their 20-foot setback for street-facing garages. Since the garage doors face interior to the property, it's not really applicable in this case. And then lastly, the reduction would not be inconsistent with the established neighborhood pattern. So nearby residential uses, just kind of highlighted here, have varying setbacks of 17 feet and 20 feet. So they're generally oriented closer to Walnut Drive. I think it's a little bit subjective on what that number needs to be, but they are not substantially set back from Walnut Drive. So you can make the argument that they are compatible. And so the Planning Commission has several options available tonight. Option 1 would be to approve draft resolution A, approving the site plan review, and also allowing the 10-foot setback from Walnut Drive. Option 2 is to amend the above listed action. Option 3 would be to refer this back to staff and/or DRC for additional analysis. Option 4 would be to make findings to deny the application. And that concludes my presentation.
Try that again. I know Mr. Gilman is here. Would you care to offer any additional comments before we get to questions? Or just hit you with questions as need be? Okay, we'll do that. All right. This segment of the agenda is opportunity for commissioners to pose questions of staff or the applicant. Let's start on Mr. Fields and Commissioner Gibson.
I actually am going to start off with a couple of questions from staff to educate me. So we're being asked, if I understand this, Darcy, is that it's being proposed to have an ADU, and because there's an ADU, then we're being asked to waive some open space requirements.
Right. So so there's some recent law that says that you cannot preclude the ability to install or to establish an ADU based on open space requirements. So being that they've met the open space requirement, we are not able to require that they provide any additional above and beyond just for the ADU.
Okay, so the follow-up question to that part is that it's my understanding that there are no ADU permits available in the town right now. So what happens if we approve something and specifically identify this project as an ADU and they're not actually able to use it as an ADU? What happens at that point?
I might have misunderstood. Were you suggesting a short-term rental, or?
Yeah.
So right. So it's not. They would have to apply for a short-term rental, and this is R2, and I believe we don't have. They would have to go on the wait list. But ADUs, more importantly, we do a deed restriction. So ADUs cannot. I think it's like 2021 moving forward. They cannot be used for short-term rentals. Sorry.
Thank you for that clarification. And then when we were on DRC, it was indicated that this person is actually a contractor and had numerous trucks that they had actually wanted to actually park on this site. So again, could you refresh our memories? What is the enforcement for that not happening?
Right.
Because the indication of the conversation was that's what was going on where the person lived now, and somehow that they were going to be able to park all these trucks off-site, and we actually balked at that idea. So what's the enforcement for that happening?
Yeah, so I think there was a little bit of miscommunication with the application when it was submitted. It was not submitted to be established for any commercial use, and so staff moved it forward as residential only. So there is, as mentioned, though, there's nothing that says in the zoning code that you can't have additional garages. Therefore, it really does come down to once it's occupied, how it's used. So somebody could live there and have a work vehicle and have a personal vehicle or two personal vehicles. And so it would come in handy to have additional garages. If somebody was going to have a home occupation, let's say in the ADU unit, so I wrote down a section of the code. So it's section 21.23070. It's home occupations. So there's no exterior storage of materials allowed with a home occupation. They're also not able to use more than half of the floor area of the principal building, which they're using for their home occupation. Auto repair is not permitted. Small engine repair is not permitted. So in terms of somebody trying to establish something and trying to legitimize it, it would not be able to move forward as a commercial operation since it's not permitted in that zone.
Obviously, if the applicant's employees happen to live there and they park their trucks, that's allowable, but otherwise it would not be, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So my last question is actually to Nick. I think I recall that you had said something about having some sort of a swale to help protect the stem wall from being as visible from the front. And I guess my question is, and kind of follow up with that, is that we talked about on DRC about somehow trying to mitigate what would be the southwest wall, part of the stem wall. The illustration on the building indicates that, like almost as the lot is flat. And so my basic question to you is what is the grade change over the run of the building? Because the street actually runs uphill a little bit. So can you tell us what the slope is from one end of the building to the other?
There's approximately a cross slope of about a foot.
About a foot?
It's going to be about 4.5 feet at the north end and about 5.5 feet at the south end.
Okay.
The illustration there is not very accurate. I got tired of trying to get my computer guy to show the shrubs as vigorous as they actually would be. So, you got to take that with a grain of salt.
I was. So, yeah, that didn't seem like what we had talked about or what your intent was. So I just wanted to clarify. So is it just going to be just like a straight slope from the bottom of the stem wall to the street, or are we doing anything other than trying to plant some plants?
There's 20 foot of width from the building to the sidewalk at the north end. At the south end, it's down to 15 feet total. There'll be a swale in the middle of that, but then it will slope up to the building. I don't know what the final grading is going to look like. I mean, it's as I said at DRC, Tim Roberts, our civil engineer, got tired of doing revisions and said, when you get a final approval, let me know. I don't know how much I can raise the grade. But the point I was making with that illustration, I can run the siding down over the foundation. That's not a problem.
Okay. Yeah, that would be really my only concern, is somehow to mitigate what that visual would be of having 6 foot of stem wall showing from the street. So that's all my questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Christians.
Just one question, Nick. I was on the DRC the second time it came through. From my recollection, maybe Darcy might remember this, but for the front, and this goes to Commissioner Gibson's question, there was a little bit of an elevation of about 2 feet from the street sidewalk that kind of goes up, and then there's a swell. That's what I remembered seeing, something to that effect. So any planting gets another like roughly 2 foot bump. 12 to 24 inch was what we kind of talked about.
I don't think we're going to need that.
Okay.
He's going to want the civil guy is going to need to create that swale. So it'll go up about a foot within a short distance, goes into a swale and then slopes back up to the foundation. But please don't pin me.
No, what I'm trying to get is a visualization that from the sidewalk flat, it's going to go up slope, and then there's a little bit of a bump, and then it'll be in the swell, and then it'll go back up to the foundation.
That's correct.
So that's what I was saying from the second DRC meeting, and I was on that meeting, so that's my recollection. That's the only questions I have at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Covarrubias, questions?
Thank you. Yeah, I just got a question, I guess more for staff. The garages that are being installed, I see that I believe there's enough room for six vehicles. Is there an allocation? Did those garages have to be used for residential purposes? In other words, there's an ADU there, so is there a particular part that's assigned to that ADU? Again, just kind of going back to what we talked about before, we had a little bit of a commercial overlay. Understandable if he's got workers there and they need to park their trucks, that's fine. But just curious to make sure that those garages are actually assigned to a particular unit since there's 3 units.
So the information provided doesn't assign for that 2-story structure, the ADU and the multifamily unit. It seems that they would be using the carport because their storage unit is at the end of the carport. So it would not be practical for the single family structure at the top to use the carport, for instance, and block that access to the storage. But then the 3 additional 2-car garages, at this point remain unassigned and just they are residential. They are for the use of the property, but they're not assigned according to the plans that we have.
So the owner himself could basically designate, correct?
So if the owner doesn't live on site, the question is, can he park his personal vehicles there? I think it turns into I'm not sure that there's anything that prevents someone from doing that as an owner and using their property. But I think it also is if it's, a car in a garage it's not causing a problem, who knows if it's the tenant's car or if it's the owner's car.
Okay. I was just curious. That's the only question I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Neal, questions?
No questions.
Okay. Darcy, I just have a couple. And this is not necessarily relative to this one. What I saw with this was there was no plan change basically from the get-go, except suddenly we went from a multifamily unit to an ADU. So you can just change a label and change the requirements for the project. That's pretty simply stated, but that's factual, correct?
Right. So when we went from the first DRC meeting, the project was originally 2 multifamily units. It was creating some issues with with meeting some of the minimum requirements for open space. And so being that the owner of the property was also interested in fee reductions that come with ADUs, and then there are some benefits to the community when we establish ADUs, but the choice was to convert one of the units to an ADU. So now it's two multifamily units and an ADU, correct?
So it's the same unit with a different label?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had was, on the staff report on page 20, it states, according to the plans provided, the additional garages are for residential use only. Where is that shown in the plans?
So when the application was submitted, there was no information that it would be commercially used. So it just implied that it is residential, since that is what the zoning allows. Had there been something written, we would have had to coordinate with the applicant more and establish that it is not for commercial.
So it's a default rather than a positive statement saying that these are only for residential use?
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I have no other questions at this time. Seeing none, this is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing and seek comments. We are taking public comments both virtually and in person. Is there anybody in person first who would like to provide comment on this item? Yes, sir. Would you please step up to the microphone and identify yourself?
My name's Chris Brizabella. My mother sold this lot to the gentleman. My mother passed away just a month ago. She still owns the lot above it, and her house is in the lot north of that. And I live in the lot north of that. Anyway, my concern, I'm glad to hear that Mr. Gibson and Mr. Covarrubias both wanted to reassure that the garages were for residential, not for the work vehicles, which was my first impression when I talked to the gentleman 6 months ago, I think it was. And because that would have created a lot more parking problems on the street. As you might be aware, there's, the health department, the workers park on the street, the vet workers park on the street. It's a fairly crowded street for a, fairly, small residential area. Anyway, so I'm glad to hear that. My concern is the easement on the south end of that lot accesses the lot above it. Now, is that when you grade for these residences, is that going to, flatten it out and then go steep? That's as okay, because that's because I know years ago when my mom split the lot, the planning commission made it, this is like 30 years ago, made it a condition that there had to be that easement. Okay, those are my concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any callers with comments, Marcy?
No callers.
Okay. Any other comments from anybody in the room? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing and bring this back to the Planning Commission. I first would ask staff, is there any additional discussion you would like to information to provide on the easement that was just discussed by?
Sure. So there is in fact a 20-foot wide public access easement. There's a 5-foot emergency access easement within that 20 feet. So you can see it, let's see. So there is a dash line showing the limits of it. So the plan for this project is, so there's no, we actually have a condition of approval that no structures, so including no retaining walls, can be established within that easement, so that eventually when the parcel higher up above does develop, that it can maintain the requirements for emergency access. So the fire department did review this plan. They were comfortable with the plan as proposed on the screen. When the future parcel would develop, likely they would, at that time, improvements for widening would have to happen, but they would also be extending utilities. So, so right now you're seeing just, I think, 16 feet of improvement for the asphalt.
Okay, thank you. Okay, discussion by Planning Commission. I'll start on the other end. Commissioner Covarrubias.
No further comments.
Okay. Mr. Neal? Mr. Christensen?
The only thing I wanted to say was that I understand this is a difficult lot to build on. I can appreciate that. I'm glad that something's actually getting done there. And I appreciate that they actually turned the garage doors inward so that we're not all staring from the street looking at those garages and all their stuff. And looks like they're going to have plenty of room to put all their stuff in those garages, which is wonderful. I'm kind of envious myself, actually, for that much garage space. So I just wanted to note I appreciated that design. I know it's probably, alters the way it looks from the street in some sense, but I particularly think it's a better view than actually looking into the garages. And if you go down that street, some of the multifamily that's further down the street, that's a very common occurrence. A lot of cars parked out front, as the gentleman said, and on the street. So I can appreciate the effort that is being done to make that happen. So in my view, I'm okay. I'm glad that they were doing that, and to ask for some, a shorter setback, I think is well worth it in lieu of that. So that's all I have to say right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Gibson.
Darcy, can you refresh my memory? My recollection in regards to that easement is that, and I'm looking for it in here, I don't see it, so maybe you can also point it out where the information would be found, is that the applicant would be responsible for improving that easement up to the edge of the property line. I believe you said it was a 20-foot wide easement. They're going to be required to I'm recalling something like 15 feet up wide to allow future, somebody putting utilities up the hill to that lot up the hills, something like that. I'm on the right track.
Yeah, so right now for this project, the requirement is, as shown, is just to leave it open for future improvements, so the 20-foot clear, which includes, within that 20 feet, there is a 5-foot emergency access portion, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But in terms of just to access the 2-story structure and then also the single family at the top, the plans are showing, it looks like about 12 feet of paving, which emergency services, that's all they need to access right now, the 3 units. When the future parcel would develop, there would be a requirement to widen, but they would have the room to do so.
Right.
And they would, and likely because they would be putting in new utilities, it would make sense that they would then.
No point in tearing it out when you're trenching for the utilities. So again, could you clarify, is the applicant required to improve it all the way up to the property line or just up to their driveway at this point, or?
Right, so they are showing it just below the property line. There is currently no requirement that it go all the way to, since it's an easement, at that time it would be, the other property owner would be able to go make the improvements necessary.
All right, thank you.
I have no further discussion points or questions on this. I was on DRC twice for this one. So we do have a suggested draft resolution A approving site plan review 21-15. Does anybody have a motion?
I will try to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Neil.
I'll second that.
It wasn't yet made yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that's what he said.
Well, he seconded my ability to make the motion.
I like that. That's even better. See how good we are?
Are we going to vote on that? And then I'll.
We'll back it up.
Apologize.
It's okay.
We like the enthusiasm.
I'd like to move approval of draft resolution A, approving site plan review 21-15, approving the 3-unit residential project and allowing a 10-foot setback from Walnut Drive.
We have a motion. I think I know where I can get a second.
I'll second that.
There we go. We're good. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion by the commission? Hearing none, I'll ask staff to please call the roll.
Commissioner Neal? Aye. Commissioner Christensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Aye.
Chairperson Kogler?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Good, thank you. Our third and final public hearing for the night is an appeal of the decision by the Development Review Committee for Kane Tiki? How do I say this? Kane, thank you. SPR 21-09, P21-004, applicant Donovan Schmidt. The location is at 1240 Park Street. It's APN 009-044-013. We have a staff report, please.
Yes, Darren Nash, City Planner. This is item number 3, 1240 Park Street, appeal of site plan review 21-09. So the photos above are just getting you oriented of which space on Park Street this is. Previously, Stein's Barbecue hasn't been there for quite some time. Mr. Schmidt has submitted a site plan review to do some basically what ended up being facade improvements for putting a new restaurant and bar inside the space called the Kane Tiki. The site plan review that was submitted had some improvements proposed, updating the awnings, providing a different style of shutter, or removing the awnings and providing some shutter elements, a new sign, projecting sign. At the time, to help identify and advertise the Kane Tiki room was the request to add these tiki-type elements. Above shows the tiki statues at either side of the door, kind of a thematic door that was wood and elements of the tiki style, including the arrows and elements above the tikis. So all of this theme was proposed with the original site plan review, which was reviewed by the DRC. Going back to this, all the elements that were shown, the sign, the doors, the other elements, the shutters, were items that were on the proposed for the private building itself. So typical things or signage, things that we would see that would go to the DRC for approval. The elements, the tiki elements, are proposed to be placed on the sidewalk itself, so on the public sidewalk. So along with the site plan review was the request to install these on the sidewalk, which that approval or that review of the those elements to be in the sidewalk refer to the municipal code, chapter 11, for things in the street or things in the right of way. So that's where the street furniture component of this application comes forward. Street furniture, or things that are placed in the sidewalk, such as signs, planters, tables, chairs, different things that we see on the sidewalks in the downtown, are under this municipal code section. It also indicates similar improvements. So the tiki statues, the proposal to put them in on the sidewalk, would be considered these similar improvements. And we refer to them at times throughout this presentation as street furniture. So when reviewing these street furniture and other items, this section requires that the DRC review the proposed elements. And that third bullet, that section indicates that the colors, material, design of the street furniture shall be compatible with the surrounding business district, and that all the street furniture is subject to DRC approval in terms of the overall compatibility and surrounding. So that's that's one of the findings that the DRC would need to make when approving street furniture. And in terms of the DRC review, so back in April of last year was the proposal that I'd shown before of those facade elements. Those went to the DRC, and at the end of the DRC review, which was originally proposed in April, we went to a few different DRC meetings, and on June 7th, the DRC approved all of the elements, or the elements which included, and I'll go back up here to this. So what was approved was the sign, the projecting sign, as well as the shutters. But the tiki elements and the elements above the tikis and the door design was not approved at the DRC at that time. The DRC just thought it was going a little too, I want to say overboard, but just they weren't thinking that that was consistent with downtown elements for the building. So the site plan review was approved, the sign was approved, again, the shutters. So Mr. Schmidt went forward with their improvements to the building, which included removing old awnings. They actually removed the previous sitting area and railings that were on the sidewalk previously with that. So it opened up the sidewalk to kind of open up that area to that front door. And then the tiki elements were constructed. And then Mr. Schmidt made a request that, hey, can this be reviewed and discussed back at the DRC to review these tiki elements? And that was the request made in January. And then in February 7th is when we went to the DRC, and on a 2-to-1 vote, the tiki structures were denied, requesting that the tiki statues on the sidewalk in front of the restaurant at 1240 Park, consistent with the finding of the DRC on the previous review, that the tikis would not be compatible with the character of the downtown. So on February 7th was the DRC's action to not approve the tikis. This is indicating the previous, so this design was shown back last year showing the elements. This is showing that the signs and shutters were approved, but the doors, the tikis, and the spears were not. So this is a photo of what was shown and taken to the DRC back in February. The tiki elements are shown on either side of the door. If you do recognize between the photo here, the structures were shown quite a bit taller, quite a bit larger than what they ended up being. And that was one of the reasons Mr. Schmidt wanted to bring it back, just to kind of show the reduced size and the fact that they were built could show really what they would look like, and that's what's shown here. Through the DRC meetings, through the appeal, I've worked with Mr. Schmidt, who has removed the tiki elements from the sidewalk, so they're placed inside. So I'm sure if these aren't approved on the sidewalk, there are other areas that he could use them in, maybe on the interior. So we then got the application for the appeal from Mr. Schmidt. And then that's where it brings us to tonight. So the zoning code, the municipal code, indicates that the Planning Commission can review appeal of DRC's decision. So those sections authorize the Planning Commission to hear and decide applications for appeal of the DRC decisions and hold a public hearing on the application. Tonight, we've provided two resolutions, one to uphold the DRC's decision, and then there's also a resolution to override or overrule the DRC decision. So there's two resolutions tonight which give the Planning Commission the option to make findings. Findings would need to be made that would indicate that the TIKI's findings were made that they're not compatible with that section 11 of the municipal code, or findings could be made that they are compatible. So that's kind of the discussion that we'll have tonight. So it will be up to the Planning Commission to discuss the matter and determine whether the tiki structures are compatible or not, as outlined in section 11 of the municipal code. So I've outlined the findings for each of the decisions. So to uphold the DRC action, what the Planning Commission would be doing is indicating that site plan review, specifically the request to install the two tiki structures on the sidewalk in front of the business, is not compatible with the surrounding areas, since the tiki statues are designed to be a thematic element of the private business. However, when placed on the public sidewalk, are not compatible with the surrounding commercial district. This is my draft of a finding. The Planning Commission could have other discussion and have other elements they might want to put into this finding, and that's okay. We can change this to incorporate really what the Planning Commission would want to make a finding for this option of upholding the DRC action. Number two is just a finding on each of them that just is indicating that the site plan review portion of the that was previously approved is continuing on. And then based on the findings above of the compatibility, that site plan review would either be upheld or not. This is the finding that would overrule the DRC decision, which then could allow the tiki structures to be placed. So the finding then is that the Planning Commission would make findings that the statues would be compatible with the surrounding areas, since the tiki statues are designed to be a thematic element of the private business, and when placed on the public sidewalk, carry that thematic character of the business on the public sidewalk in a manner that improves the aesthetic appearance, business identification, and economic vitality of the commercial district. So back in section 11 is some portions of the section that indicate that when putting things on the sidewalk, they can be of character tables, chairs, planters, they can be a benefit to the downtown, add aesthetic appearance, identify with businesses and economic vitality. So we've incorporated that language into this, if that's where the Planning Commission decides to go with the decision tonight. We have received, since the DRC review back in February up until tonight, we've received various support letters. The letter shown in the photo above is from Main Street. Both are those, one's from Main Street, one's from the Chamber of Commerce. We did also receive one letter of someone who is a business owner who had some concern about sidewalk clutter and had some concern about establishing these on the public right of way. So the options that the Planning Commission have tonight is, one, approve the resolution denying the appeal and sustaining the decision of the DRC to not allow the tiki statues to be placed on the public sidewalk by making those findings I indicated before. Or option two would be to approve the resolution approving the appeal, which would overrule the DRC decision and allow the tiki statues to be placed on the sidewalk. Three would be refer back for more information. Four would be to offer some other kind of option. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We did, one more point, we did receive numerous letters that we provided to the Planning Commission with the addendum that indicated some additional support from downtown folks for the statues. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Nash. Could you clarify your last statement? In our packet, there was actually another letter of support by Stephen King, Design Committee Chair. Were there other correspondences received also by the city?
It was on that. So we did receive 6 to 8 additional pages provided by the applicant that indicated support for the statues.
Okay, thank you. The applicant like to offer any additional comments before we pose questions? Mr. Schmidt, would you?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thanks for hearing our appeal this evening. Just a little backstory on how we kind of got here and why the tikis were out there to begin with. We took all the comments of the DRC back in April of, I think it was 2021, when we first saw the original drawing up there with the really aggressive big tikis, the spears above the tikis with the wooden door. We did away with the door, kept the commercial glass, got rid of like the spears. We actually even canceled the order with Daniels Woodland, who did a lot of our decorations for the front 2 tikis. Fast forward 9 or 10 months to late January, early February, when they came to install. Those tikis came as a gift from them. They used a forklift to get those off. We came into the shop the next day, and boom, there they are. They weigh about 800 pounds. It wasn't easy enough for us to get them off the street. We couldn't get them back immediately to get them off. After looking at the tikis and the original drawings, we're like, these are much smaller, much less aggressive, and actually really looked good out there. And the public comments, people taking photos in front of them, telling us how great they looked, brought us to the, hey, can we get these looked at one more time? So it wasn't something that we just did on purpose, that we just ignored the DRC originally with. It was just something that kind of fell into our lap. And now we're just trying to work through it. They add a lot of character to that street. You guys will not believe when they were out there, how many people take selfies in front of them, post them on their social media, on their Facebook, promoting Paso, not just our business, but all of Paso, getting people to see the experience that Paso has, just not a cookie cutter town with all the same businesses. It's like things that are unique and memorable. So I just wanted to say that before I start answering questions, that they weren't intentional. We did heed those comments back in April of 2021, and now we're just trying to figure out how we could keep them.
Thank you. Okay, at this point in time, it's time for questions of staff and the applicant as need be by commission. I went that way. Let's go back this way. Commissioner Gibson, you want to start us off?
Thank you, Chairperson. I don't actually have any questions. I have comments, but I'll reserve those to the appropriate time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Commissioner Christensen.
I had one question for staff, Darren, and this is just trying to understand. In the PRC code you showed us, there doesn't mention anything about artwork either. Is there something that determines that separately than what we're looking at today?
Get back to the so Annie, did you I think the original sketch, is this what you're referring to, Commissioner Christensen?
Well, I guess my question is for the code. I saw in the discussion of the code, the items listed, there's nothing about artwork. Is that handled a separate way? Is that
such as a mural?
Yeah, well, not even a mural. Let's say a piece of artwork, a sculpture. Thank you. Something to that effect. I mean, there are several around town. I mean, I've seen some really beautiful ones.
Those elements, which include other similar items.
Okay. And then one other question I had in regards to some of the seated areas outside. Maybe Donovan can answer this. Do you remember what the seated area size was before?
So it came out about halfway. There's
there it is.
Photo
Okay.
of it before. You can see the score mark in the concrete.
Right.
It's about whether it was 4 feet of the 8 feet or 5
I get a sense
feet
in
of
the
10
picture.
feet, something like that.
Okay. Okay, that's it for right now. Thank you.
Commissioner Covarrubias.
I was also on the February 7th DRC. Question, Darren, just for sake of putting these tikis into perspective, the original tikis that were proposed versus the tikis that are now being presented, what's the differential in size? Do you know approximately? I mean, how much smaller are we really talking about?
You know, what we're looking at above here compares the two. That was a sketch, kind of just showing a theme. I don't know that they really had dimensions on those. However, if you look at the scale, they were up above the shutters and up above the door height. So they would be up above, maybe taller than 8 feet, where these below those lights are, do you know how tall they are? Like less than 6 feet. Yeah.
Okay. So I have some comments I think I'm going to save, but just for clarity, so when I look at the before and after pictures, when it was Stein's, I believe, they've removed the railing that was used for additional seating, which took up about approximately half the sidewalk. They also removed the awning that was there to open up the front of the facility, correct? So that's how it looks now. So they've actually increased the sidewalk presence in your estimate, correct?
In terms of the opening up the sidewalk for the public to walk, getting rid of the fences helped that situation.
Helped that situation.
Yes.
Okay, I'll reserve some comments for later.
Thank you. Commissioner Neal.
No questions.
And like my fellow commissioners, I have comments, but I don't have any questions at this point in time. So any others by commissioners? Christensen.
I just had one note here on page 41, number 8. I think there was just a small typo. It says 2021, February 7th, 2021. I think you meant 2022.
Correct.
Just clarification. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And I would ask, I guess, just one clarification, and you addressed it, but I want to make sure. The cross torches, as well as the boards and all the decorative aspects of the doors themselves, gone, not proposed any longer, correct?
Those were not approved with the DRC's action.
And they're no longer part of this presentation, this approval.
They're not part of it, but you might want to clarify with the applicant.
Okay, I got a head nod, which I think made that clarification. So let the record show there was a head nod. Okay, at this point then we will move into the public hearing. I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Are there individuals in chambers who would like to address us? If so, please step to the podium, and you have 3 minutes for your comments.
I don't know if I can do this in 3 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. Good evening, Gina Fitzpatrick. Thank you for listening to us this evening. Just a couple of comments. I know that you saw what we submitted. We also had, I think it was actually about 24 letters maybe from the neighboring businesses that wrote in support, because everybody is just really a big fan, I'll say, of these tikis. So this really became a big story in downtown Paso Robles when the tikis came out, because the literally droves of people that were standing outside waiting until 4 o'clock, and they started at 3 o'clock, and they were taking photos, and it really, I have photos on my phone from people that were standing outside the Cane Tiki room waiting to get in and having just an absolute blast with it. So that was kind of the first sign for me, and then later on I was able to catch up with the rest of the story and find out that they technically weren't approved and all of the things. I was there the day that the forklift came and unloaded them, and you know, here's Troy and Donovan going, what's happening right now? So all of that said, I think that it's really important that we consider our downtown, looking at the compatibility of our downtown district and knowing that we're looking for more artwork and more of the experience that the visitors are looking for. These really speak to that. It's important that we continue to look at things that are done well and done nicely and aesthetically pleasing, and continue to improve our downtown environment. It's really important to me. It's really important to Norma. I know that she wrote in as well and asked me to speak on her behalf tonight because she couldn't be here. So I just want to make sure that if you guys do have any questions for us, I'm here to answer those questions. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments.
I apologize. I'm from the Chamber of Commerce. I may not have said that.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Sharon Foster. I'm not a speaker, but I'm relatively new to the community, and I was doing some volunteering over at Main Street. Was asked to go take some pictures so Norma could see what the fuss was about. And yes, she's very in favor of it. But I'm not here to speak for her. I'm here to speak for myself. And as a person from Houston, Texas, a oil town, we kind of found out the hard way that you can't be a one-trick pony. You've got to have variety. You've got to have a little of something for everyone. In my opinion, this is not garish or overdone. It's charming. And the pineapples are the international sign of hospitality. It's warm, it's inviting, it's beautifully done, and it's something that I hope stays as it is in the community. I totally respect ARCs and the review. We don't want Bahama pink and purple roster rooms. That there's limits, but I hope it stays as is. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any virtual comments?
No callers.
Okay. Hearing none, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring this back to the Planning Commission for discussion and subsequent action. I think if I'm reversing trends, I'll go back to Commissioner Covarrubias.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've given this, because I was on that final DRC that denied the request. So I've given this a lot of thought. I think one of the words that sticks out to me quite vividly is the word compatibility, right? Is it compatible with our downtown? I think the challenge that we have is that, I'll use a different word, it's different, right? It's different. Does different make it wrong? I think, when it says, is it compatible to surrounding businesses, the ironic part to me that I was thinking of, and it came to light just a short time ago, is Mr. Schmidt and his team own, this is your third restaurant? Downtown? 4? Even number 4? So it's interesting to me that we have a business owner here that owns 4 establishments in our downtown area. And when you think of compatible, I would assume that he's all in favor of just that, making sure that the downtown area stays vibrant, stays unique, draws in crowds because he's a business owner. His job is tourism, supporting local community, giving back to local community. So I think where I'm struggling here is a little bit is that it is different, but in my view, it doesn't make it wrong. I think the tikis are well done. It is different. And so really what happens is it gets into a situation where then it really boils down to personal preference. We have 5 commissioners here today, and it really boils down to each of our own personal preferences. Because from what I understand, according to Darren, it meets the category of street furniture. They've opened up the sidewalk, they've opened up the awning, they removed the awning, they opened up the front. I don't believe those tikis take up any more room than those fencings did. They draw in tourists, they draw in locals. They're smaller in size. They got rid of the bows, the arrows and things that are, and the door changed. So I think Mr. Donovan and his team have done what they can to make it tasteful. And again, it kind of boils down then to personal choice. I did read the letter about the one opposing person concerned about setting a precedent, and I get that. But again, I think each situation has to stand on its own merit. Because you do for one doesn't always mean you have to do for everyone. And I know that gets into got to be fair and all that stuff, but we're talking about an isolated situation here where if somebody presents something to the commission that is not tasteful, that is not deemed art, that is not a benefit to the community, that is not drawing locals and tourists to our downtown area, then there's argument that it's not justified. In this case, I think it is the complete opposite of that. I think it is justified. So again, when we talk about compatible, you're talking to a business owner that owns 4 establishments downtown. I think he would have nothing but the best interest of our downtown, our community, and tourists throughout. So I personally, and I stated it at DRC, and I'll state it again, with what's been presented, the size of the tikis, the location of the tikis, I don't have a problem with it. I think it enhances our community. I think it's different, doesn't make it wrong. Doesn't make it wrong. So I think we need to be careful here, because if we sway too far to the, well, if you set the precedent thing, okay, I get all that. I've been in this community since 1980. I moved here in 1980. I've seen a lot of changes. A lot of changes. Some of it good, but most of it good. Or I should say, some of it not good, most of it is good though. I am absolutely pro-growth. I am actually pro-business, 100%. So I think we need to be careful here and set aside a little bit too much of our personal likes and dislikes and look at what's in the best interest of our downtown, our business owners, our tourism, and also our local community. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Commissioner Neal.
I too was on the February 7th DRC. I wasn't a fan of the tikis then, and I still am not a fan of the tikis for probably the opposite reasons that Commissioner Covarrubias said. I do believe that it is not compatible with the downtown. Based on what I'm seeing, the pineapples are a new element which increases the height effectively of those tikis. And the pineapples were not part of the original DRC submittal. So that was a surprise. And it seemed to have been a surprise to staff during the DRC meeting. So I was not supportive of the tikis on the 7th, and I am not supportive of the tikis this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gibson.
Thank you. I'm going to speak on the 2 different areas. And the first is I'm very concerned about process. I think that's hugely important. I've learned in my public life that the process of how things happen is probably as important as what you actually do. And I'm just going to reiterate this really briefly because I think, we all know what it is. So I think I was on the first original one back on May 24th of 21. I was also on the February 7th one. And I just note that the tikis were denied 3 times by a majority of the commissioners by mathematical, because I was not on all 3, and we rotate through. I think it's important to, I respect my fellow commissioners, and when they have an opinion, I know that regardless of the topic, that it comes through DRC first, and I always read what DRC's opinion is, and I take that really high regard. Whatever that is, I might end up disagreeing with it, but I highly respect. I want to see what the DRC's opinion is on every topic that comes before us, and what their issues were, and were those issues addressed. So that being said, I was literally stunned on February 7th to find out that despite it having been denied twice, that the tikis actually were installed. And I understand the explanation. That doesn't mean that they had to have stayed on the sidewalk. And my understanding, it could be right or wrong, but it was that there was a complaint that triggered it coming before us. Because I asked staff, why is this coming before this? I thought this was settled, but it was discussed twice. The other question that I asked was something that was mentioned about the lights, because honestly, I mean, I've been on the commission 2 years now, and sometimes we review things like lights, and some of them seem so innocuous to me. I don't understand the difference between that black light and that black light. It's like, I don't know why we're even talking about it. But I asked staff if the pineapple lights were approved, because I don't remember ever seeing those, and was told that no, those were not approved. So I was really disappointed to be put into the position of seeing that the DRC had said no twice and that things were installed despite that. I mean, I just think that's not a very good process. And it's somewhat disrespectful, I think, to people that basically are volunteering their time. I mean, if you don't agree with this, that's fine, but I just can't imagine installing something after you were told no twice. So I have a problem with that process. I have a bigger problem, though, with the precedent, and that's where I'm going to disagree with my friend, Commissioner Covarrubias, because, I think about this, and there's no denying. I mean, I think those tikis are beautiful. I mean, honestly. But Daniels, what do you expect from Daniels Woodland? I mean, everything they do is beautiful. The issue is with the precedent is that just a little bit down the street, we have a Thai restaurant, and then we could talk about them putting a Thai elephant in, and then they have a Japanese restaurant across the street, and they could put a Japanese pagoda or something in. And the surf shop could put up their surfboards or whatever, because really what we're talking about, and I think there's a very apt phrase, is thematic furniture. So with every business, we could have thematic furniture. We could have a large cookie by the cookie store. The idea is that it really is not a matter of deciding because we like a person or we dislike a person that we're going to do or not do something. I think we have to establish rules that are fair, and they apply to everybody. We don't do things because we like somebody. We don't not do something because we don't like them. The rules have to apply across the board. So I have a concern with the precedent, because that's about the last thing I'd like to see happen in Paso Robles, is to have thematic furniture in front of every business. I get this promotes this business. I absolutely get that. And in essence, no matter what I do, I'm in marketing. I spent my entire career in marketing. I totally get how this markets the business. I don't want that in front of every business marketing their business. The word that was used at the DRC is, yes, this is kind of Disneylandish. And I'm going, yeah, it's also kind of Las Vegas. And I don't want to live in this town that looks like Las Vegas or Disneyland. So although I'm disappointed about the process not being followed, I'm more concerned about the precedent, because I really don't think that's in the best interest of the town, that the business starts putting thematic furniture in front of their store. And if we approve one, then I would be hard pressed to say no to anyone else. I mean, if it promotes their business and so a certain size, then I don't know how you say no. So those are my comments.
Commissioner Christensen.
Thank you, Chairperson Kogler. I was part of the original DRC meeting, and maybe my recollection is a little bit different. I didn't personally, I don't remember denying the tikis in general. When we had a discussion at the DRC meeting, we did not like the scale of what was proposed and the look of what was proposed, especially with that wood door. That's my recollection of that discussion. We were told at the time, and I wasn't part of the next DRC meeting, that that would come back as a scaled down version. Potentially, staff was going to work with the applicant and do that. So that's the experience I have with the entire DRC submittal. I didn't see anything in that DRC about the pineapple lights either. So that was a new thing to me. All the other things followed. I appreciated that the applicant actually went with the glass doors. I think it's very classy that way. And in my mind, I feel that we've made exceptions around town already. We do it on a regular basis. We're asked to do it on a regular basis. Maybe not as often as we think, but we're often asked to make exceptions. Now, that being said, I didn't go and measure the tikis or anything like that. I walked by them, I saw them, I went down there. And it got me thinking, personally, I was born in Hawaii, so to me, this was a normal visual for me. It wasn't something that just jumped out and was extremely odd, even though it's here in Paso. So, I mean, that's a little unique in itself. I do find myself agreeing with Commissioner Covarrubias that different is different. And I understand where some of the other commissioners are coming from. The appearance of them showing up, obviously I could see that would be very upsetting. And to the process, it is disrespectful, whether it's intentional or not. And I don't know for sure. I have to take the applicant for his word. And I've seen a lot that the applicant has done in this community. And I have to say that usually they seem to have always the best intention. I'm not opposed to the tikis the way these worked out. I didn't get to see them again at the second DRC proposal. The first DRC proposal, I was not for the size of those tikis. I said at the time, can they maybe kind of make them smaller, maybe kind of wrap them back in against the wall a little bit better, whatever, to diminish it so they weren't so overpowering. And that was my viewpoint then. I would have to say that when I went around town, and I've done it before, but I went around again today and I was just kind of trying to get a visual of what we have and what businesses have out front. And I think we're going to all have different opinions on what we prefer to see, because we have different opinions of, for example, to me, these are more of an art feature, not so much as a furniture feature. And so I try to take that into consideration. Would it have been my first choice for that if I was opening that? Probably not. But again, it doesn't come across extremely unusual to me after I was able to see them in place. It really helped me get a focus of what they looked like and at the presence on the sidewalk. I did read the letter from the individual that wrote about the concern about creating a precedent and also having things out there that are in the way of pedestrian traffic. I think the pedestrian aspect of that is negated by the sheer fact that the railing portion was removed. I mean, there's a lot of spaces down on 12th Street and other portions of downtown that literally I have to slide in behind my wife to walk by. And we've allowed that, and that those, I'm sure, fit well, and I don't have a problem because I've actually sat at some of those, and they're wonderful locations. For me, again, I don't feel that this is a piece of furniture. It is unique. It's unique for our downtown, but I went around today and I saw other very unique things today. I saw, art stores that have very unique exterior designs and decorations, and they're out in the public walkway or the right of way. I saw businesses that had their own versions of items at their front door that maybe they probably fit a little better in the sense of wine country or things like that. But, I'm not in favor of cactuses personally, but I've seen some really big displays of some succulents and cactuses out in front of some buildings that are pretty massive. So for me, in the long run, I did have to do a lot of thinking about this, and I felt like I had to do the research, and I spent time and I walked around town, and I did this today, and I did this a couple weeks ago when the tikis were there. So I understand, and I'm listening to where my other commissioners are coming from. I agree that, so The pineapple lights, I don't know where I had no idea. I have nothing about that because I haven't seen that before. But in my opinion, the tikis feel just fine down there. I didn't realize there was 24 letters from other people in support. So that was a little bit of a surprise that we had that as an addition. Were there a lot of letters that were against? I just saw the one, Darren. Was there any others that were against that made another point of what their view was on it?
Yeah, the only letter that I recall that was against was the one you have. Those letters came in after your staff report was published. They were provided online with a link, but we should have provided some hard copies.
Okay, and I probably just missed it and didn't read all the way through those because I read through, perused some of those. So my apologies. I appreciate you supplying that. I think I'm just going to end there. I don't have a problem with the tikis being there. So if that's what's in front of us today, then I would be in favor of those being there.
Okay, thank you. I do have a question, Jared. Talk a bit about the pineapples. How did they just suddenly appear? They were never part of the initial presentation that I was on the DRC for, and the sketch that leads off the packet doesn't show pineapple lights. How did they get in place? What was the process there?
Like you, I had not seen a plan with the pineapple lights.
So they were simply put up?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Echoing Commissioner Gibson, I am really disappointed in the way this was handled. To me, acceptance and delivery and placement of these was directly in opposition to the DRC action that occurred denying this. With respect to Commissioner Covarrubias, and I do respect his comments and his knowledge of the community, I don't trust any individual business owner or collection of business owners to design Main Street in Paso Robles. What we got the first time was the expression of what the owner wanted to do. And that's the kind of cartoon sketch that's on the wall right now. And I don't think this sketch helped the cause much. Now, in retrospect, it's easy to look back. But had an image been a little bit more realistic in its composition, like the actual image on the left, I think would have probably shown better and better portrayed what was being proposed here. So I struggle a lot because I really feel that we're in the classic situation of somebody asking for forgiveness when they should have asked permission. And that troubles me greatly. And it angers me, quite honestly. So I have more problem with the process than I do the result. And it's not often, in fact, I've only been on the commission for a little over 3 years. I've never had the chance to overrule myself. So this is unique. And so it's causing me consternation, quite candid. I do appreciate the fact that the sidewalk has been opened up more, that the railings have been removed, and I do think that's a factor in my thinking. In retrospect, I don't personally mind the pineapple lights, but again, the process of you simply putting them up is something that should not have occurred. And I am also under the impression, as my fellow commissioners are, that these went up and it was a complaint that brought them back before the city staff and before us. Now, again, I don't know the accuracy, but that's certainly what it appeared to be. So they were discussed, they were put in contrary to approvals, and that's a problem. Now, let me take off that narrative and set it aside for a minute. The outcome, I actually think looks pretty good. The scale of these is far better than what was shown in the more cartoon sketch on the right. Are they art? Are they sculpture? I don't know. But the three-dimensional aspect of them makes them a bit more sculptural in quality. Are they different? Clearly, they are different, and I don't think that's bad in and of itself. So I'm torn, quite candidly, of where to go with this, and I suspect as this moves forward, I'm going to be in a pivotal position here, if you count, where the votes are likely lying either side of me. So it's a bit of a struggle, put it that way. But I do think the outcome, as is represented in the image there, is so far superior to what the initial proposal was. That will weigh in mind. So,
and Chairman Kogler, just to clarify a little, as Mr. Schmidt indicated, the statues were delivered and placed outside. They were placed outside for some time. There was a complaint. It was actually brought up by one of the DRC members of, hey, the tikis are out there. I didn't realize they were there. Those weren't approved. So I got a hold of Mr. Schmidt, explained to him the situation. He then, it might have taken a few days, had them removed off the sidewalk. Told him that what he does have the ability to do is apply to go to the DRC for discussion. Indicated to him, it might be helpful to place them out there so that the DRC members the next week could go by and take a look at them. We're getting a lot of value from that photo right there by indicating what they look like, size, that kind of thing. So they were placed out there. I worked with them to do that. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I did think it was valuable to place those out there so that the DRC, and I called each of the DRC members just to say, hey, they're going to be out there. We know they're not approved, but I think in terms of this discussion, go by, take a look. We can discuss at the DRC. Then after the DRC on the 7th, when they were not approved, got a hold of Mr. Schmidt. Hey, let's get those off the sidewalk so that they're not approved, but you have the ability to appeal. And that's kind of where we are today. But there was some time in there where I had worked with the applicant to provide some information for DRC.
Yeah, and I appreciate your bringing that up, Darren. I think that fits in with my understanding. It doesn't change my perspective on what happened with the process, but I think you've drawn a fine line as to what actually occurred, and I'm appreciative of that. Since everybody else has, I guess, identified a direction, and I think that may play into a motion that's ultimately forward, this is one of those cases where I have to kind of swallow hard and say that I actually like the outcome. I think it's reasonable. I don't think it's too much over the top. It is so much more appropriate than what we saw originally, and I was on the street and had a chance to kick the statues and look at them myself. And they are different, they're unique. Do they set a precedent that means we get giant cookies or something else? I hope not, but I think I'm okay with these staying there and being part of the approval, and so I'm prepared, I think, to override my previous thinking. Swallowing hard, the process is still very disturbing. So that's where I'm at.
Can I just, I just wanted to comment one thing on what you said, and in correlation to what Darren said. When I first heard that there was, that they were out there, because I had, I kind of keep track of some of the stuff. I had, the media motion was about the process as well too. So that's why I purposely went down there to actually visually see them myself. And I've had to separate myself from that, but I agreed. I was not, when I first heard that, I was personally taken aback. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you. Any other discussion points by the commission? Commissioner Covarrubias.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify something. I was on the original DRC that declined these, just for the record, just because I wanted to be clear on that, because I also was on the following DRC, the last one that approved it. So like like our chairperson Kogler, I had a little bit of a change of heart after I looked at what was presented the final time. I will echo what Commissioner Gibson said about processes. I am, I spent 30 years in business, and I am all about processes. So I just want to be clear, if we put this to a vote, are we addressing the pineapple lights anymore, or is that kind of something that's being, if we approve or deny, whatever the case is it a package situation? Because obviously the pineapple lights seem to be a thorn a little bit here with regards to process. I'm okay with it, but again, I just want to make sure we're clear on that and where we stand with that.
Mr. Nash, do you have any insights for us on pineapples?
Sure. The pineapple lights are definitely a little bit beyond what we typically would see for a commercial style light. Putting a light fixture or changing out a light fixture doesn't necessarily need a building permit. It doesn't necessarily need a DRC approval for a business owner to change out a light. However, with this facade and with the things that were shown, it would be good that to have seen those earlier so that we could have reviewed those. I think that tonight, the site plan review is being reviewed tonight. Obviously, the shutters were approved, they're installed. The sign was approved, they're installed. I think if the Planning Commission wanted to acknowledge the pineapple lights, one way or the other, I think they could also indicate for the applicant to come up with a different design. I think that that's under the purview of the commission.
So let me ask, if there is a motion that would approve, this always gets tricky when we're repealing what we've done previously, but if there's a motion to allow, I'll say, the existing photo that's on, if I can phrase it this way, that was on the screen a moment ago, which includes the pineapple lights, it would seem incumbent upon the Planning Commission, should we want to allow that to remain, that those lights be included in the motion with the totems of the tikis or whatever the appropriate terminology is for that.
Yeah, I think part of the motion could be including the pineapple as part of the what's being reviewed tonight. So this finding above would be the finding if the motion is made to overrule the DRC decision. This would be the finding. So let's read it, because if there's something specific here that doesn't jive with what the commissioners are thinking, we want to make sure the findings are correct. So this indicates that pursuant to the municipal code, declares that all street furniture is subject to DRC, and in this case of an appeal, the Planning Commission, the approval of the colors, materials, design, and overall compatibility with the surrounding areas. The Planning Commission hereby finds that site plan review 21-09, specifically the request to install the 2 tiki structures on the sidewalk in front of the business at 1240 Park Street, is compatible with surrounding areas, since the tiki structures are designed to be a thematic element of the private business, and when placed on the public sidewalk carries the thematic character of the business onto the public sidewalk in a manner that improves the aesthetic appearance, business identification, and economic vitality of the commercial district. As part of the motion, you can include the motion on the lights, but this is the specific finding in the resolution related to overruling the appeal. So as part of the motion would be the discussion of the lights.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Commissioner Gibson.
Regardless of my opinion of the pineapple lights, I think it's incumbent on the commission to include that in the motion one way or the other, so that is addressed one way or the other. That'd be my recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Christensen, you got your hand reaching for the button.
Chairperson Coker, I was going to make a motion that we, I'd like to make a motion to approve the option 2 for the appeal, which is approved draft resolution B, approving the appeal overruling the DRC decision and allow the tiki statues to be placed on the sidewalk subject conditions of approval.
This is Commissioner Covarrubias. I would second that.
We have a motion and a second. Come back to discussion. Did you include the pineapples?
I was putting it not specific. So clarification, the way that it's written here or shows in this draft. Is it imperative that we mention the word pineapple lights? Or as you've presented this actual appeal with the photos present, would that suffice?
It would be best for the motion to include approval of the pineapple lights.
As shown as in Exhibit A. So Exhibit A includes them, so you could just say consistent
Thank
with
you.
Exhibit A.
Okay, and that's what I was just going to say. So for clarification, I move that we approve option 2, accepting as Exhibit A, which includes the pineapple lights. Is that clear enough?
And I'll second that again.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, I will ask the question to be called. And just for clarification purposes, a yes vote on this would overrule and would allow what we've seen tonight. A no vote would seek to uphold the position of the DRC the way this motion came forward.
Option 2.
Option 2. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Christensen,
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias,
Aye.
Commissioner Neal,
No.
Commissioner Gibson,
No.
Chairperson Kogler.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is discussion items by staff. Agenda item number H.
So there are no additional discussion items tonight.
Okay, thank you. Then we will move into consent calendar. We have 2 items on consent, the DRC minutes from February 28th, March 7th, and March 14th. And then secondly, the Planning Commission minutes from March 8th. Are there any comments or changes based on Commissioner review?
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar for March 22nd.
I'll second the motion.
A motion from Commissioner Neal, second by Commissioner Gibson, which would approve the DRC minutes that were referenced as well as the Planning Commission on March 8th. Any further discussion? If not, staff, would you please call a roll on that?
Commissioner Neal,
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen,
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias,
Aye.
Chairperson Kogler.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, next on our agenda is other reports. We have 3, the first of which is the Paso Robles Streetscape Ad Hoc Committee report. There are 3 commissioners on that group, Commissioner Jorgensen, me, and Mr. Christensen. And I'm wondering, would you like to offer any comments about our first meeting? I'm sorry, Covarrubias.
That's okay.
We worked on this, we were on Railroad Street together. You know, it's not been a long night, but it's been a long night.
No, not good.
Okay, my bad. Would you like to offer some comments?
Sure. We met and we had a great meeting. I have never walked Paso Robles Street up and down. We walked all the way to the freeway exit and back. It's going to be a daunting task. That project is, I think it will be great. I think it'll be great for the community, but it's going to be a lot of work. So I'm looking forward to, we have our follow-up meeting scheduled already. Warren has sent that out. So I'm looking forward to the feedback. But yes, it's going to be a lot of work for all of us involved.
Thank you. And I know I would just remind those of us that are on that group, including Commissioner Covarrubias, we have homework in that we're supposed to actually, I think, bring some thoughts and ideas to that meeting rather than just have it coming back at us. So I'm sure we diligently will take that into account. I personally have a conflict with attending that meeting, but I can do it virtually. And I think based on what I saw from Warren today, that can work. So I'll just count on that and I should be able to make that work that week. But again, that I would totally agree. It's going to be a very challenging corridor. It's going to take a lot of time to see improvement there, but I think this is a great beginning to start to see that happen. And absent this occurring, it never would change. So we'll work our best. Next up is the Housing Constraints and Opportunities Committee Zoning Code Update Report.
I don't believe we have any additional updates tonight on that item.
Thank you. Finally, then under other reports, the DRC rotation schedule. It's in front of us. It's on the wall. I think we made a couple of adjustments before. Do we need to make any others at this point in time?
This is Commissioner Christensen. I don't remember if somebody took the date from me on April 11th. Do you have notes on that, Warren? Or
I think we have Davis down on April 11th for you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong line. Okay, thank you. We're good.
Hearing no others, we'll assume it's workable for the moment. We always sometimes have things that arise, and we're very good about covering for one another. So that will be the case. Okay, Planning Commissioner's comments. Let's start with Commissioner Neal.
No comments. Thank you.
That was an easy start. We'll go to the middle. Commissioner Christensen.
That was an easy start. I just want to make a comment in regards to the appeal item as a commissioner. you know, being into my second year, I have to agree with my other commissioners, the process, whether it was intentional or not. I'm not sure what other procedure the city has for themselves. And to be honest with you, I just wanted to note, me voting for that did not, I didn't want that to convey a message that I was okay with that, the way it went down. I want that to be said. And I don't know in the future, I think I'd be curious to know what other aspects the city has when that type of thing occurs. I don't know that it occurs very often. I've never seen it before, but again, I haven't been here too long. So just wanted to make a note of that and put that on the record. Thank you.
Mr. Covarrubias, comments?
No other comments, sir.
Commissioner Gibson.
Thank you. You know, I've been here, as Mr. Covarrubias has said, since 1980, and a lot of us have been here a long time, and I just think back of all the angst that was caused over the years with different things like street art or murals or things like that, and I'm just thinking that we might have opened up something that we might want to have a conversation to nail down on exactly what is street art or something, so that that doesn't get out of control. Some sort of definition, I think, would behoove providing some direction on a future applicants of what sort of things are allowed or what sort of things are not allowed. And again, it had nothing to do with the tikis. As I said, I admire them. They're great. I'd like to have them in my living room maybe, but Daniel Woodland does great art. But I've seen murals that people had, the whole community gets upset with street art in town, and they get upset about different things. So I just think that perhaps we should put that on an agenda or something to work on about what is street art and what sort of things are allowed, just to give some clarity to the public, if for no other reason, to give them some guidance. So that'd be my comments.
Thank you. I really don't have any comments other than to say that the lesson tonight is it's not easy to sit in this chair. So, but I appreciate all of the work that was done on this and the comments that were offered. And I think Commissioner Gibson raises a good point. I don't know if that's in the purview of the Planning Commission or not, or if that's another entity, but if it's within our purview, I would certainly encourage that we have that discussion as well. That's all I have. Staff comments.
Yeah, updates on some upcoming items. So you have a special meeting next Tuesday, which is the 29th. That will be a joint session with the City Council and the Airport Commission. It's going to be a briefing on the spaceport permitting application process. This is basically an informational briefing for the commission, but will be an official meeting. Also, before the meeting, the city's hoping to take pictures of all the commissioners. So I think you got an invite to show up a little earlier for some kind of semi-casual pictures in the park. So if you're available for that, you're encouraged to attend that as well. We did have a workshop with the City Council Ad Hoc Committee today regarding outdoor dining. Those are the results that are on the board there. So based on that, the Ad Hoc Committee will be refining some proposals there that will come back both for Planning Commission and City Council review. So that's basically a work in progress at this point. And then this Thursday, 6:30 p.m., there'll be a workshop, another public workshop on short-term rentals. Our current ordinance sunsets this summer, so it needs to be extended, otherwise it'll lapse. It's a zoning code, so it requires a Planning Commission recommendation to City Council. So the workshop's kind of the first step in that process. All these meetings are being simulcast basically on YouTube and recorded. So you can go back and observe them, listen to them, check in on those if you want. Yes, Mr. Neal.
Is the workshop a actual commission meeting? So it is just a workshop, because during the last round of short-term rental, many of us were conflicted out because of the distance to a short-term rental. And I just want to make sure that if we were to attend the workshop, that would not be problematic.
No, so it's noticed as a public meeting. It isn't a Planning Commission meeting. So individual commissioners can attend. You're advised not to make your point of view known during the meetings. but to observe is fine. You can also attend virtually as well and listen on YouTube. So you have a lot of discretion about how you want to play that. We are reviewing the issue of conflict of interest for the commissioners that weren't part of the commission when this first came through. There was a determination that any commissioner that lived within 500 feet of a short-term rental, which was most of the commissioners, had a conflict of interest. So basically it conflicted out the majority of the commission, so we didn't have a quorum. In that case, you actually do a random drawing of straws to select who gets to vote on it. So literally at the beginning of the meeting, nobody knew who was voting or not. It was very complicated. So we're not sure if that requirement's going to still be in place. There's a possibility it still exists. There's been some court cases on this issue. So city attorney's working on that right now. So no commissioner should assume that they're conflicted out at this point, and they shouldn't be surprised if they are conflicted out. So that's the best we know right now.
Thank you.
Okay, a couple other things. The Olson specific plan, we did a time extension on one of the subphases. It looks like they're going to be breaking ground in May at this point. So they're putting together all their final purchase options with potential builders out there. We have some site meetings and pre-construction meetings starting to line up for the next couple weeks. So May right now looks like the likely groundbreaking, and then there'll be a formal groundbreaking event for the commission and council probably early summer. The landing project, which is the boys' school reuse project, we're in the EIR process there. The traffic analysis has taken a little longer than was expected, so we still haven't issued for public review. We were hoping to have already done that by now, but that's been delayed a little bit. Project's still moving forward. It's just taking a little bit longer on traffic. So right now, we're probably looking at summerish for a public review to start on that. So if you haven't heard anything, that's why. Let's see. And then Residence Inn, that's a hotel that was approved by the Planning Commission almost 7-8 years ago. It's down on South Vine Street right before you get to 46 West. It's in the vicinity of the Gateway annexation, but it's not part of the Gateway annexation. It's a commercial parcel that's been in the town for decades. So that project's been in plan check literally for like 6 years, but it looks like it's actually going to break ground and start construction. So that's likely the first hotel that we'll see starting construction in the foreseeable future. So I just wanted everybody to know, because everybody's forgotten about that project, but it may actually start coming out of the ground. It's a 4-story tower. It's on top of a hill. It's going to have a significant visual impression as it starts to go up. So don't be too surprised if you start to see that. And that'll conclude staff's report. Oh, Darren.
Just for the DRC members for next Monday, just a heads up, we're going to be looking at the Paso Commons project. This is a fairly large, it is a large project out off of Wisteria Lane. So this is Golden Hill Road behind Lowe's, on the east side, Wisteria, kind of back towards where Justin Winery facility is. All of those vacant lots south of Wisteria, east of Germain, I believe, were purchased by a developer, about 450,000 square feet. I believe 5 to 6 separate buildings on some of those parcels are going to merge some lots to create the parcels for them. This is a project that will go to the Planning Commission probably later this spring into summer. So what we're going to have is Oasis Associates, Carol Florence and her team. They presented the Justin the 4 and 5, and we did some landscaping plans with them not too long ago at DRC. That same group is working on representing this project. So we will send you links to the plans so you can look through them. It's early in the DRC process. We'll review it. We'll just be looking for this typical DRC thoughts. Is there anything missing? Anything additional they want to see? So just a kind of a heads up that we're going to look at that on Monday's DRC.
What are the uses there, Darren?
Generally, wine storage businesses. They've got applicants lined up for a few of the buildings. Paul, do you have any other things to add to kind of what they're looking at there?
Director Cross, and I think that's
Chairperson Kogut,
Yes, sir.
the company I work for is part of the development team for the Paso Commons. I am on DRC for the next meeting, so I most likely be conflicted out. So if someone wants to take my place, I'd be happy to trade them a meeting. So
Yeah, next Monday.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, anything else for the good of the order this evening? Hearing none, I would seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion, Commissioner Neal, second, Commissioner Christensen. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. We're done. Thank you all.